Welcome to Working for Women, the Independent Women's Forum podcast, where we are changing the conversation about women and public policy for the better.
Hey everyone, I'm Julie Gunlock with the Independent Women's Forum and your host for today's Working for Women podcast. Today I'm here with Kelsey Harkness, a senior reporter and producer for the Daily Signal and a contributor to the online magazine The Federalist. Kelsey also hosts her own weekly podcast called Problematic Women, which actually just happens to be what Kelsey and I will be talking about today. While the liberal mainstream media calls these women problematic, Kelsey and I prefer to call them conservative. Kelsey, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Well, look, so I'd like to set the stage here. And obviously, Kelsey, I know that you follow this issue. And I mean, the fact that you run a podcast called Problematic Women, you closely follow how conservative women are treated in the media. But I'd like to remind our listeners a little bit of just what it was like for the women of the Obama administration. Did they receive the same kind of harassment, really, from the media? And I would say abuse. I don't think so. So let's just, take a look at some of the prominent female Obama staffers, and obviously the First Lady and the Vice President's wife, Jill Biden. But again, some of the staffers first. Huma Abedin, obviously Hillary Clinton's right-hand woman. She was often dressed by major designers and featured in both entertainment magazines and also, fashion magazines, Vogue and Elle, and many of them. And she was also dressed, even for her wedding, by a top designer. So not bad treatment there. Of course, you have the disgraced head of the DNC, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She had a glossy spread in Vogue, complete with a makeover where they ironed her hair. She looked fabulous. And, again, accompanying a slobbering, very positive story about her. Samantha Powers, U.S. Ambassador to the UN, similar glowing spread about her being a working mom, a picture of her looking fabulous alongside her children. That was a Vogue spread. And again, another sort of fawning article talking about what accomplishments and what a strong woman she is, what an admirable woman she is. She was also named one of Glamour's Women of the Year in 2015. And of course, you can't ignore the countless Michelle Obama spreads and covers. Just to name a few: Glamour, Essence, InStyle, People, Parade, Vogue, Variety. I mean, that's just a very, very small sample. And the same thing with Jill Biden. She was featured in Elle spread in 2013. You even had less sort of, you had sort of the prominent figures and the sort of, really beautiful members of the Obama administration, being featured. But then you had really even some serious policy people. Valerie Jarrett, which is a close advisor of the president, she was featured in Capitol File, Newsweek, and many other magazines. So, and again, I think it's important to say it wasn't just the pictures, but the stories accompanying them were always extremely positive, and often in interviews too. On television, when these women were interviewed, there weren't really tough questions. It was a lot of softball. So, Kelsey, is that what we're seeing for the women associated with the Trump administration?
Yes, Julie, I think you did a really fabulous job of laying the landscape of the different ways women are and have been treated between the Obama administration and the Trump administration. Just to pull out a few specifics that you just mentioned, that Debbie Wasserman Schultz spread in Vogue was really interesting to me because Vogue did give her a complete makeover, which when you really think about it from a feminist perspective, sends the complete wrong message that we should be trying to send women and young girls. It's like Debbie Wasserman Schultz wasn't worthy of being featured in Vogue or wasn't good enough for Vogue unless she got this high fashion, glamorous makeover that made her seem like somebody she's not. Because, we might disagree with her policies, but you have to respect her. She doesn't seem to value too much her appearance, what she looks like, when she's doing her
Right.
job, she prioritizes her job. And yet
Yeah.
the fashion magazines don't seem to give her that respect. And I actually found it really demeaning, the makeover that
Yeah.
they gave her.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's very interesting. You see Samantha Powers at the UN, and she looks like, I mean, she's a stunning woman, and all these women, they look great. They look great, right? But you see Samantha Powers at the UN, and in shots of her actually doing her job, she looked tired, right? Because of course she's tired, right? She's got a big job. And then in the Vogue spread, she's sort of laid out on this chair, and her children are playing at her feet, and she's wearing this expensive piece of clothing. Her hair is perfect. Her makeup is perfect. You're right that in these spreads, often it is their looks that are highlighted. They might mention, oh yes, she has this big, powerful job. But yeah, I think that's a great point, and especially with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I mean, the one thing I admire very little about her in terms of her policies, that she promotes. But I've always sort of admired the fact that she's like, hey, I have curly hair, big deal, right? I'm not going to iron it. I'm not going to spend 4 hours on it every morning. And then when she's featured in this magazine, she's made to look completely different. I thought that's a very good thing. But again, even lesser known women, you had Senator Warren, Representative Pelosi, Gillibrand, Texas Senator Wendy Davis. They've all been featured as these heroes, these leaders. And then women, for instance, like Michelle Bachmann, who she got the cover, I believe it was Newsweek, and they altered her photo so that she looked creepy. So even when women are and conservative women are generally not featured as leaders, but when they are, the story is often incredibly harsh. They're portrayed as a sort of traitor to their sex. And then again, with Michelle Bachmann, you even had them altering the photo so she looked menacing.
Exactly. And then if this is what these fashion magazines really value, women's appearance, what they wear, then you would think Melania and Ivanka would be the first two women to be featured and be plastered on the covers of all of them. One of them is a high fashion model, and the other is a fashion designer who designs clothes, actually high fashion looking clothes that are a little more affordable for everyday women. But they're just not only completely ignoring Melania and Ivanka. We've seen designers refuse to design clothes for them, which doesn't really matter because they have the good fortune of being able to still afford their nice clothes.
Yeah.
But they're just not just ignoring Melania and Ivanka. They're writing a number of quite negative articles about them based on their appearance. They're always finding something to criticize them for, whether it's Melania Trump wearing the wrong shoes, whether it's Ivanka Trump daring to have bows on the sleeves of her dress. These women who claim that they are feminists are constantly picking out things that are wrong with these women's appearances, rather than, if they want to, attack them for the content of what they are saying or the policies they're supporting. Of course, they're doing that, but then they're really ruining any ground they have, any legitimacy they have, when they come out with these very low blow attacks, which I always just find very ironic when they do attack conservative women based on their looks. And we know they've done this to Sarah Huckabee Sanders time and time again.
Oh yeah.
Because it just reminds me of Michelle Obama's famous statement, when they go low, we go high. But that's just not the case when it comes to the treatment of conservative women.
Well, look, let's be clear. The one thing I remember that I would see criticism of Michelle Obama, cruel things that they would say about, her body shape, about the appropriateness of what she was wearing, about whatever. I don't even want to repeat them. It was terrible. And the conservatives that I respect out there would always criticize this. This is not the way we speak about the First Lady. She is not to be discussed like that. This is not in any way relevant to who she is or to the office of the First Lady, and I think that's good, and we should expect that from. I mean, I wish I would see more folks on the left criticizing the kind of commentary that we're seeing. I mean, you mentioned Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Comedians call her fat. They call her ugly. There is almost zero backlash from feminists. I mean, I love that Lindy West, Mrs. Body Positivity, okay, is silent on this. And all of those folks are silent. Where are the feminists? Where's Jessica Valenti coming out saying, you know what, this woman gets up in front of a crowd of barracudas every day, and she keeps her cool. And I may disagree with her, just like we disagree with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We can still defend her on people when people criticize her for her looks, which people do. So I wish that we would see that kind of consistency. But it appears that if you're a conservative woman, it's okay to make sexist comments, to make cruel comments about your looks, and unfortunately, I think that's the times that we live in. I don't see that changing.
And I think this is exactly why a lot of conservative women and conservative men, for that matter, are having a difficult time associating themselves with this new brand of new wave feminism, modern day feminism, which I call a very selfish version of feminism, where they're only focused on issues that affect themselves. And they're constantly just proving, I mean, on my weekly podcast on Problematic Women, we are constantly, there's always something to talk about that they're doing that's completely hypocritical, attacking women for the wrong reasons. But not only are they attacking women for the wrong reasons, they're also ignoring the real injustices that women face worldwide. And when I say this, I'm talking about, just look at what's happening in Iran right now, where women are actually ripping off their hijabs in search of freedoms just like ours. And then at the Golden Globes, you didn't hear a single person, man or woman, speak up about them and try to give those women who really do actually face human rights violations, where they can't wake up and choose what they're going to wear. They can't go into a sports stadium. They can't leave the country without their husband's permission. These are real issues that women face, and all American celebrity feminists care about are issues that affect themselves.
Right. It is narcissism gone wild. But I will also say I think a lot of this is sort of it's sort of funny when you look at the sort of inability for the left to really address this and really defend conservative women who are attacked for their looks. But I also think there's a serious side. For instance, Louisiana Democrat Cedric Richmond made some pretty vile comments about Kellyanne Conway. There was a picture of her on a couch, and he made some pretty vile sexual comments about it. And there was almost no blowback. Jake Tapper actually was one of the few people to sort of call him out on this. But Jake Tapper asked Nancy Pelosi on air to condemn Richmond's insults, and she just shrugged. She said she didn't really know the details of the situation. We saw the same reaction from Nancy Pelosi when it was revealed that Conyers had made this payout to someone that he had sexually harassed. They made a settlement with this woman, and she sort of just shrugged and didn't really condemn him. It took her something like 10 days. I mean, I really do feel like there is a normalizing, and that's dangerous. I think there's a normalizing of the cruelty and really the sort of sexual, the very vile sexual comments of conservative women. It's still not allowed if you're a liberal woman or if you're a liberal female entertainer. But conservatives seem to be left out of a lot of the standards that the left has. So I think a lot of this is kind of amusing to talk about, but I do think that there is a serious side to this.
And I do think that a lot of members of the mainstream media are complicit in a way. They're not necessarily, your top reporters in Washington and New York are not out there condoning this behavior, or doing it themselves, engaging it in themselves. Usually it's the lower level online bloggers that you see doing this. But the reality is the mainstream media is not holding these quote unquote feminists accountable when they do say this. I think it's very rare that you see them called out on TV. I think the one you just mentioned involving Kellyanne Conway is one of the rare occasions where someone was attempted to be held accountable. I actually was at the Washington Press Club Foundation's congressional dinner when that comment was made, and I was in the same room with a lot of members of the press from the mainstream media, and I could not believe he made that comment. And I looked around, and everybody seemed to kind of be laughing, and it didn't seem to strike them in the way that it would had that comment been made against a female in President Obama's White House.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Kelsey, this has been a great conversation, very enlightening, a little bit depressing, but I think that I think what the work that you're doing with your podcast and highlighting these issues is really important, and we hope we can highlight them as well. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yes, Julie, I appreciate it, and we love the work you're doing on this issue as well.
Thanks, Kelsey. Well, listen, everyone, thanks for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Working for Women podcast. Check us out at iwf.org.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please give it a thumbs up, share it on social media, or stop by iwf.org for similar content.